Mara left him 6 times. The first time, she made it 2 days. The second time, a week. The fourth time, she got an apartment, signed a lease, bought new plates. And then, on a Tuesday, she went back, again. Her friends stopped asking why. Her sister stopped calling. Everyone around her settled on the same quiet explanation. She must want this. Some part of her must like it. They were wrong. Mara hated it. She could list everything it was costing her. The sleep, the friendships, the person she used to be, she knew. Knowing was never the problem. Because here's what nobody around Mara understood, and what maybe nobody around you has ever understood. She wasn't staying for love. She was in withdrawal from a drug that had a name and a face. And if you've ever gone back to someone who hurt you, or watched someone you love go back again and again, and felt that helpless anger rising, the next few minutes are going to explain what willpower never could. This isn't a story about weakness. It's a story about a machine, and once you see the machine, you can never unsee it. Start with the question that torments everyone on the outside. Why doesn't she just leave? He hurts her. She cries. She says never again. And then she's back at the same table, laughing at his jokes, defending him to her own mother. From the outside, it looks like a choice. A bad one made over and over by someone who should know better. But ask the person inside, and you'll hear something stranger. They'll tell you leaving doesn't feel like walking away from something bad. It feels like tearing away from something they need. Shaking hands, racing thoughts, a pull in the chest that gets louder every hour, until going back feels less like a decision and more like breathing after holding your breath. That's not the language of preference. That's the language of craving, and that word craving is the first crack in the mystery. Because cravings don't attach to what's good for us. They attach to what's unpredictable. Hold on to that sentence. It's the key to everything that follows. In 1981, 2 researchers named Donald Dutton and Susan Painter studied women who returned over and over to partners who hurt them. The comfortable theory said these women were broken, passive, somehow drawn to pain. The data said something else entirely. Dutton and Painter found that the strength of the bond didn't come from the person's weakness. It came from the relationship's rhythm. 2 ingredients, and only 2, predicted the deepest attachments, a power imbalance, and abuse that came and went. Cruelty followed by warmth, followed by cruelty, followed by warmth. They called it traumatic bonding. Not bonding despite the mistreatment. Bonding because of its rhythm. Read that again. Because it breaks the story everyone tells. The kindness in between isn't the exception to the harm. The kindness is part of the mechanism. Years later, a therapist named Patrick Carnes gave the pattern its sharper name, the betrayal bond, and mapped how it shows up everywhere power and inconsistency meet. Abusive partners, cult leaders, exploitative bosses, even hostages who defended their captors. Different rooms, different faces, same machine. So no, what happened to Mara isn't rare, and it isn't a character flaw. It's a documented piece of human wiring. And to understand the wiring, we have to leave the world of relationships for a moment. We have to walk into a casino. In the middle of the last century, the psychologist B.F. Skinner ran an experiment that accidentally uncovered the cruelest trick in behavioral science. He put animals in boxes with a lever. Press the lever, get food. When the lever paid out every time, the animals pressed it calmly. When it stopped paying, they stopped pressing. Reasonable. Clean. Then Skinner changed one thing. He made the reward unpredictable. Sometimes the lever paid, sometimes it didn't. No pattern, no warning, and the animals lost their minds. They pressed frantically, obsessively, long after the reward stopped coming entirely. Of every schedule Skinner tested, the unpredictable one produced the most desperate, most unbreakable behavior. Scientists call it a variable ratio schedule. Casinos call it a slot machine. Every slot machine on Earth is built on this one finding, a reward that comes, sometimes hooks a brain harder than a reward that comes always. The near miss, the maybe, the this time could be it, that's the engine. Nobody sits for 9 hours in front of a vending machine. Give the same person a machine that only pays occasionally, unpredictably, and they'll feed it their savings. Now look closer at that machine. The flashing lights, the lever, the intermittent jackpot. Now give the machine a face you love. That's a trauma bond, not a metaphor. The same schedule, the same circuitry, the same mathematics of craving, running on a human being instead of a machine. And it runs in a loop with 4 beats. The spike, the cut, the crumb, the flood. Watch how each one works, because one of them is happening to someone you know right now. Every trauma bond begins with a jackpot. The early days are extraordinary, and that word matters, because ordinary is exactly what they're not. The attention is total. The intimacy comes fast, faster than it should. You've never felt so seen, so chosen, so lit up. Your brain does what brains do around jackpots. It releases dopamine, the chemical of wanting, of chase, of this matters. Remember this. But here's what a neuroscientist named Wolfram Schultz discovered about dopamine, and it changes the whole story. Dopamine doesn't really respond to reward. It responds to unexpected reward. The technical term is prediction error. The gap between what you expected and what you got. A steady, reliable pleasure barely moves the needle. The brain adapts. The signal quiets. But a pleasure that surprises you, that arrives bigger than anything predicted, sends the signal to the ceiling. Now think about what that means. A kind, consistent partner gives your brain a gentle, steady hum. An intense, unpredictable one gives it fireworks. Not because they're better, because they're louder. That opening spike does something else too. It sets the reference point. Somewhere in your memory, a flag goes down. This is what we're playing for. This is the jackpot. The machine has shown you the prize. Now it does the thing that actually hooks you. It takes the prize away. The warmth stops. Not with an announcement, with a draft. The texts get shorter. The eyes get colder. The person who couldn't get enough of you now looks through you. Maybe it's criticism. Maybe it's silence. Maybe it's an anger you can't predict and can't map. And your body responds before your mind has words for it. Cortisol, the stress chemical, starts to climb. Sleep thins out. Your stomach knots at the sound of a key in the door. You develop a new skill you never asked for. Reading a face like a weather report. Scanning for the storm. Here's the part that matters. All that stress doesn't push the bond away. It deepens the need. Because now there's a problem to solve, and the problem has only one solution. The warmth is gone, and the only person who can give it back is the person who took it. Notice the trap geometry. The wound and the medicine live in the same body. The fear and the comfort have the same face. You don't get used to the cold. You get hungrier for the warmth, which means the machine now has you exactly where the casino wants every player. Leaning in, watching the reels, waiting. Then a crumb, a soft text at midnight, a hand on your shoulder, the old way. One good evening where he laughs like the beginning, and the whole room feels warm again. Measured against a healthy relationship, it's nothing. A crumb. But you haven't eaten in weeks, and to a starving brain, a crumb detonates like a feast. Remember Schultz, dopamine runs on surprise. Nothing is more surprising than kindness after cruelty. And sometimes when you're closest to the door, after the worst fight, after you finally pack the bag, the machine doesn't drop a crumb. It opens the floodgates, the tears, the apology that sounds carved from his soul, the flowers, the promises, the version of him you fell for. Returned from the dead, and holding your face in his hands. Reunion, reconciliation, skin and warmth, and I can't lose you. Your body floods with oxytocin, the bonding hormone, the chemical designed to glue mothers to infants, lovers to lovers. It doesn't check credentials. It doesn't ask whether this closeness is safe. It just binds, and it binds hardest in the exact moments of reunion after fear. So count what the machine just did in a single week. Cortisol carved the hunger. Dopamine spiked on the surprise. Oxytocin welded the repair. Spike, cut, crumb, flood, then the reels reset, and the loop begins again. Dutton and Painter's data said the unbearable part out loud. The bonds forged this way are stronger than the bonds of steady love. Every cycle doesn't wear the chain down. Every cycle adds a link. Now we cross into the part the sympathy stories won't touch. Because so far, this sounds like something being done to you. And it is. But here's the darker truth. At some point, the machine stops needing to recruit you. Your own brain takes over the job. It starts with the bookkeeping. After every flood, your memory quietly edits the ledger. The apology is filed in bright colors. The thing he was apologizing for goes soft and gray at the edges. Psychologists know the pattern well. We remember peaks and endings, and the machine always ends its worst chapters with a peak. Then comes the Defense Department. When your sister says he's hurting you, something in you rises, not against him, against her. You hear yourself explaining. You're only seeing one side. He had a terrible childhood. You don't know him like I do. Feel the horror of that quietly. The prisoner is now writing press releases for the prison. It isn't stupidity. It's dissonance. Holding I love him, and he is harming me in one mind is unbearable. So the mind softens whichever fact costs less to soften. The harm gets renamed. Stress. A rough patch. My fault. Probably. And one more dark note. Because honesty requires it, this machine doesn't always have an engineer. Some people run the loop coldly, by design, but many run it blind out of their own chaos, their own addiction, their own damage. Here's the sentence that matters, so hear it exactly. The machine doesn't need a villain to run. The lever doesn't care why it gets pulled. Your brain bonds to the rhythm, whether or not anyone composed it, which is why. But he doesn't mean it changes nothing. The reels don't run on intent. So now, finally, we can watch Mara's sixth return with the right eyes. Day 1, she's furious, and fury feels like fuel. Day 2, the fury burns off, and underneath it there's static, restlessness. Her hands keep finding her phone. Day 3, her body starts to argue. She can't sleep, can't eat. There's a physical ache in her chest she'd swear was cardiac. If she didn't know better, every song is about him. Her brain serves up only highlight reels. The beach, the laughing, the flood moments. On a loop she can't turn off. Day 4, the thought arrives dressed as reason. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I overreacted. Everyone struggles. And the craving stops feeling like craving and starts feeling like truth. Day 5, she's composing the text. Understand what's actually happening in that apartment. The dopamine circuitry that spent 2 years learning press the lever. When it hurts is screaming into the silence. Cortisol is high, and the only relief this brain has practiced is him. The oxytocin bond is starved of its person and it aches. Researchers who scan brains in heartbreak keep finding the same thing. The regions that light up are the regions of craving and withdrawal. Mara isn't remembering a man. She's craving a substance, and nobody told her. So when the crash hit, she read it the only way the culture taught her to read it, as love. That ache must mean he's the one. Why else would it hurt this much? Here's the sentence someone watching this needs tonight, so let it land slowly. The pain of leaving is not proof that you belong there. It's proof that the machine worked. You're not heartbroken. You're detoxing. And a brain that learned this loop can unlearn it. The way out begins with one brutal, liberating reframe. You cannot win this game. Not because you're weak, because it's rigged. A slot machine is not defeated by loyalty. You can't outlove a variable ratio schedule. You can't be so patient, so understanding, so perfectly lovable, that the machine turns into a vending machine that pays every time. Read the design again. The inconsistency isn't a malfunction the right behavior will fix. The inconsistency is the product. That's why every strategy you've tried has failed. Being better, being quieter, timing the moods, managing the weather, earning your way back to the opening jackpot. It's a gambler's system, and the house doesn't care how clever your system is. The house always wins, until you stop playing. And here's the reframe that unlocks the door. Stopping isn't abandoning a love story. It's walking out of a casino. Nobody stands in the parking lot at dawn, wallet empty, and says the machine and I just grew apart. They say that building was built to take from me, and the lights were built to keep me inside. One more thing you're owed before the exit. That opening jackpot you've been chasing. The person from the first months, the one you keep waiting to come back, that was the lure. The prize was never behind that lever. It never was. So here's how you walk out of a casino. Not with willpower. With protocol, the same way anyone quits a drug. First, distance. Real distance. Contact is the lever, and every pull resets the clock. The check-in text, the closure conversation, the quick look at their page. An addict can't keep one bottle in the house for emergencies. If shared children or shared work make full silence impossible, make the contact boring. Logistics only. Brief. Flat. Starve the reels. Second, rename the feeling every single time it comes. When the wave hits at 2 a.m. and your chest aches, and your thumb hovers, say the true sentence out loud if you have to. This is withdrawal. Not love. Withdrawal. You're not arguing with the craving. You're refusing to let it wear love's name. That one relabeling, repeated, is how the spell breaks. Third, borrow a sober brain. Yours is compromised. That's not an insult. It's the diagnosis. So while you're clear, write the unedited record. The worst nights, the exact sentences, the things you swore you'd never accept. Give a copy to one person you trust. And when day 4's maybe it wasn't so bad arrives, read the record. Call the person. Let their memory hold what yours keeps trying to soften. And fourth, expect the flood. The machine notices when a player heads for the door. That's precisely when the biggest jackpot lights start flashing. The most devastating apology of the entire relationship will arrive 2 weeks after you finally leave. It isn't fate. It isn't a sign. It's the casino, watching you reach for the exit and turning up the music. The 7th time, Mara left on an ordinary Thursday. No dramatic exit, a protocol, blocked numbers, a written record, a friend on speed dial, and a promise to treat every wave of longing as weather from a storm already past. Day 4 came, dressed as reason. She read the record. Day 19 brought the flood. The letter, the roses, the resurrected man. She watched the jackpot lights flash from the far side of the glass, felt the old pull in her chest, and named it out loud, Withdrawal. The music, turning up, and then something the loop never predicted. It got quiet. Months later, she said the strangest part was the new relationship, the steady one. For a long time, it worried her. No fireworks, no starving, no feasting. Just a person who said Tuesday and appeared on Tuesday. Her brain kept waiting for the reels to spin, and they never did. And she had to learn, slowly, in her body, that the flatness wasn't the absence of love, it was the absence of the machine. That's the last thing the casino steals, if you let it. Your definition of the word. It teaches you that love feels like jackpots and near misses, like starving and feasting, when the real thing mostly feels like safety. Boring, miraculous safety. A hum, not a siren. So if there's a lever in your life, a person whose warmth comes in crumbs and floods, whose kindness always lands right. When you reach the door, you don't have to hate them to leave. You just have to see the building for what it is. Somewhere in this story, you saw a face. Maybe someone you've watched go back 6 times. Maybe your own reflection in the machine's glass. If this explains something willpower never could, share it with the person still at the lever. It might be the record they read on day 4. Tell me in the comments which beat of the loop you recognized first. The spike, the cut, the crumb, or the flood. Someone in Withdrawal tonight will read your comment and finally understand what's happening to them. And subscribe to Crimpathy. We study the parts of human nature everyone else politely looks away from. You were never bad at leaving. You were up against a machine built to be unleavable. Walk out anyway. The exit is real, and it's closer than the next jackpot.